My name is Neil Cannon. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of LEDdynamics, here to talk about how lighting affects our sleep and health. The sun is the perfect light for humans. It's what we evolved under. It has a somewhat amber tone in the morning and in the evening, and in the middle of the day is more blue. And that, as we'll show, triggers our circadian entrainment and triggers our ability to function throughout the day. The raw bandwidth of the human eye is quite high, if you think of it like a computer scientist. That being said, there's a remarkable discovery in the process of the eye. The rods and the cones are actually there for the visual cortex. But there's a second set of receptors that have only been discovered over the last couple of decades, which are called the intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. The eye has a second pathway into the brain, not just to the visual cortex. It also gives us our clocking. The amount of light you're exposed to, how bright it is, and the spectral content will all conspire to give you either a somnolent state or a wakeful state based on what you're seeing in your eye. Light's effect on humans has been studied. We can take immediate measurements over an hourly basis. Even over days, we can get a sense of their circadian entrainment, which then affects all human activity, even up to and including having problems with sleep. And then if you look over years, there's things that happen annually like seasonal affective disorder and various other types of disorders beginning to be provably linked to disruptions in circadian entrainment and circadian rhythms. These middle time frames are a little bit more difficult to show, and the hardest, of course, is to explore effects that this sleep-induced ramifications have on us over a much longer time frame. And first amongst these is really dementia. You rather slowly increase your melatonin production in the evening. It peaks in the middle of the night, and then as you wake up in the morning, it tends to drop rather quickly. But there is a problem here. Melatonin as a substance in us, it declines with age. It peaks in early childhood. As we get through teenage years and the 20s, we start to see these declines in the melatonin. Older individuals actually produce very, very low levels of melatonin, which makes it difficult to sleep. We've come up with a very different way of doing correction. We've dubbed this innovation PERFEKTlight. We've made it with a K, which perhaps a little bit of a scientific joke as Kelvin is with K. But we realized that we could meet all the criteria of simulating sunlight inside by adding one extra chip. That extra chip is shown here in this diagram to the right as a green chip. So we can make very, very cool light as you would have at noontime and very, very warm light at evening or morning hours. Luckily, we also discovered that doing correction in this way gave us very exceptional color rendering. So looked like to us when we started this kind of work that we had something that was genuinely helpful to circadian entrainment as well as doing a great job at simulating sunlight inside. If you mapped out how we produce light within PERFEKTlight and how the color varies across the day, you would see a sunrise that has a very low blue peak and a lot of amber. Throughout the day, it would grow in blue till noon time, just as the sun does. And then as it becomes night, we see this fading back away, and we have pretty much the same spot we had at the sunrise at the sunset, which is exactly how the sun behaves. And there are some tremendous advantages to this. We can get CRI very, very close to 100%, which is the goal of any of these indices. And so much so that when you use these for photographic work, there's little or no post-production editing because the colors are rendered so accurately. We've taken PERFEKTlight across a great many study groups in order to prove its efficacy. We've been looking at how it can help people with Alzheimer's. We've also teamed up with some workers who study people who work shifts and who have the unenviable difficulty of having to change their weekly circadian entrainment as they progress through their work week. And this turns out this is quite difficult for people in so much as causing more accidents and other disease predispositions seen in these populations. We've also started with inpatient psychiatric activities, so the circadian entrainment is thought of as something that can help those who are needing inpatient psychiatric work. And then we work with national labs to do characterization of biodynamic lighting and in controls. And we also work with the centers that do the studies for the aged. In general, the reception is quite good to anything that would help these vulnerable populations who need some way of seeing their interior environments better suited to their lives. We are, as a company, producing a wide plurality of fixtures that have PERFEKTlight in them. Here's a few examples, and we also are able to install this type of lighting via retrofit. So we have standard products, and then we also have retrofit kits. We set out at the beginning realizing that people were going to want to incorporate this technology, but it had to be easy to use. So we have electronics, which include the memory and control functions. We even have rather standard looking sliders that give you dim and CCT control and on off. Apps for changing the setups and controlling the devices real time. And we've even put those apps through to being controlled via voice commands, for example, within Alexa. So we have a full gamut of controls and app technology that allows us to customize, improve, update, and give the clients exactly what they need out of these setups. For example, there's a button on the Perfekt control called My Perfect Day, which is a way of setting up your exacting sleep schedule throughout the day, and it's proved to be very, very successful. We also maintain a system that, as you can see it, tuning here online so that people can do a simulation and see a typical area they might work in. Here you see pictured hospital workers. Throughout the day, they're experiencing sunlight coming through windows, but the light that's over their heads is also changing meanwhile. It replicates sunlight throughout the day and can be changed as to its location on the planet and also the type of setting. For instance, education, hospitality, office, retail, healthcare, grocery, and residential are all considered. Very broadly put, PERFEKTlight mimics sunlight, and this is a significant benefit to circadian entrainment. Thank you very much.